We didn't know her too well, really, until quite recently, until maybe
a few years ago.
80s, beginning of the 80s, when I just thought, well, maybe I've misunderstood. Maybe it's my mistake, not hers. So I telephoned her and started talking to her about just things generally. She said, "Why are you telephoning?" And I said, "Well, I think I've misunderstood you, and I think I've made a big mistake. And as you were John's wife, and I was very fond of John, I feel that he would have liked me to telephone you and kind of say hello and see what's going on." And she said, "Well, don't do me any favors, don't do it out of pity or don't sympathy. I don't want that, I don't want charity." Which at first I thought, but I had to say, no, she's right, she's right.
Yoko Ono has long been blamed for breaking up the band after she became involved with Lennon. McCartney said the group didn't do well with her constant presence back then. "We weren't sexist, but girls didn't come to the studio, they tended to leave us to it," he said. When John got with Yoko, she wasn't in the control room or to the side, it was in the middle of the four of us, Paul said. "We were kind of threatened. She was sitting on the amps while we were recording. Most bands couldn't handle that. We handled it, but not amazingly well, because we were so tight." In 1966, before Yoko met John, she had already showed up at Paul's doorstep to ask for original lyrics for a project she was working on, which included all kinds of manuscripts. Paul didn't particularly feel like giving those to someone he didn't know, but he thought that John may be willing to donate one, so Paul sent Yoko to see John. John later gave Ono the original handwritten lyrics to the Beatles song The Word. You can imagine the relationship got off to a rocky start. Cynthia Lennon, John's first wife, was a friend of the Beatles and had known them since before their Cavern Club days. Paul's former girlfriend was a Cynthia's housemate, and they used to spend a lot of time together. Cynthia was more than just their friend's wife. She was a member of the Beatles' inner circle and the mother of a boy they all felt fond of. Hey Jude was written by Paul for Julian. She had been part of their lives for 10 years when she came home early from a holiday and found Yoko in her house wearing her bathrobe. Yoko was the woman who broke up John's marriage, and the two of them treated Cynthia appallingly from then on. The relationship didn't develop well from there. For years prior to John's relationship with Yoko, the studios at Abbey Road were a sacred space. It was a place for John, Paul, George and Ringo to make their magic with George Martin. Even Brian Epstein talked about how he felt out of place when he entered. None of the other Beatle wives or girlfriends spent any time in the studio, but suddenly Yoko felt it was her right to be there, fully supported by John. She not only felt the need to be there, she felt she had a right to make musical contributions, and even had a bed brought in at one point when she was feeling unwell. After the Beatles break up, there was a really ugly period of antagonism between Paul and John. They sniped at each other in songs and in interviews and were generally unpleasant to each other whenever possible. Yoko was by John's side in this era, agreeing with everything he did. While Paul and John were able to return to civil conversation in the years just before his death, Paul never had a history of friendship with Yoko to fall back on. It's easy to imagine he still harbored a lot of resentment for her. After Lennon's murder, McCartney's attitude toward Yoko softened. They often had to work together on joint Beatles projects. When that was going well, he would say nice things like Yoko didn't break up the Beatles. If they disagreed on the order of songwriting credits, he could be irritated. Pretty typical human business relationship. Paul knew that even if he felt threatened by Ono's presence, he understood what she meant to Lennon. McCartney said, "His big awakening was if John loves this woman, that's gotta be right. I realized any resistance was something I had to overcome. It was a little hard at first," he said. "Gradually we did. Now it's like we're mates. I like Yoko."
Hello.
That was Ringo, folks.
Well, what can I say?
And goodbye to all of us.
Well, this is Ringo. Everyone seems to have said everything here, so I'll just sign off by saying cheerio and best of luck from the Beatles.